I'm the Phil Jones Martini Whisperer, and thanks for being so punctual for cocktail hour. I've loved to see you this evening. Oh, thank you, James. It's Sunday night, so I thought I'd just treat ourselves a little bit. You're welcome. Before we get started and wait for new friends coming on board, just a toast for you, friends, because seriously, I just realised I've just over 6,500 Instagram followers, which is just trippy to my mind, quite frankly. And you're all real. I didn't buy any of you. There's no, kind of dodgy things from Ukraine or anything like that. You're very special to me. I put the photos up every day. They're shot in real time. I'm thirsty, clearly. I want to get to my drink. I don't Photoshop them at all. I don't treat them too much. They're like literally within a minute of my mixing them, taking a photo of and posting them. They're up. And I really appreciate your support and your enthusiasm for all that I do. I'm just doing my thing, and it's just amazing that there's a community of martini lovers and spirit lovers around the world who are tuning to what I'm doing. So all 6,500 of you, and then change, thank you so much. It's really great to have you along. Cheers. All right, let's get to it. Tonight, it's all about vermouth and dry vermouth. So each week I've been doing these Instagram live sessions, and if you miss previous episodes or you can't stay for this whole one, I'll go for about 30 minutes, I reckon, based on the last few weeks. Don't worry, because I'll record it and they're all on my YouTube channel, and this will all load up on Wednesday evening, and I'll top and tail it and pretty it up just a little bit. So let's talk about vermouth and dry martinis and dirty martinis and perfect martinis. Let's start at the beginnings. So what is vermouth? And I suspect it's probably not what you think it is. So the first thing, it's not a spirit. It's wine. It has its roots back in almost medicinal brews. We're going quite a long way back. We're talking about vermouth. So it's wine, a little bit of spirit to help preserve it, and herbs, and it's usually always barrel aged in some shape or form. And you have everything from a sweet vermouth, which is usually the red version, and it's based on different types of wine, clearly. So a dry vermouth might be based on Sauvignon or Chardonnay or even a Riesling kind of grape. That aside, so it's not going to last forever. So if you've got a bottle of Martini Rosso or Cinzano from 1995, it ain't going to blast. If it's been opened, this is the thing, this is pro tip number one for this evening, folks. If you've got a bottle of vermouth, it's not a gin or whiskey which will live forever and a day. It's going to go off, sorry to say. So how can you extend your life of your vermouth? Because it's a living thing. Once you open it, it just deteriorates. And it doesn't go bad like wine can do in a hurry, but you buy yourself some time. And you notice in the context of martini, sometimes they're just not quite right, and I've looked back and I realised that I've stuffed up. So how do you keep your vermouth lasting longer? So there's two ways you can do it, a couple of different ways. One is keeping out direct sunlight. So that does affect most spirits in general, but especially things like this. So you keep them in the dark or out of direct sunlight, even temperature, that kind of helps. Once they're open, you put them in the fridge, and that's the simple thing you can do. So if you've got one bottle of vermouth, like your Naughty Proud or bottle brand happens to be, whatever you've got at home, once it's open, keep it in the fridge, that'll double its shelf life. So they say, once it's open, nice and tight, it'll last about a month. In a fridge, maybe 3 months. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing is these, you would have seen these in shops, or vacuum seals. They come with little plugs. So if you've got a wine bottle, for example, you can suck the air out of them. That's great. So that'll keep it going forever and a day, pretty much, all things considered. The other thing that I do, where's it gone? Here it is I decant a little bit of vermouth here. So this lives in my fridge most of the time. So this is Naughty Proud this week. I switch it around just a little bit. So a couple of mils in my and this lives in my fridge. Because clearly I go for a bit of vermouth. And the rest I will vacuum seal and keep separately. So that'll extend your vermouth as long as you possibly can. And in other countries, and those of you who are watching in America or places like that, you actually get half bottles. I wish we could get half bottles in Australia, but we can't. So half bottles are great because, again, when we talk about vermouth, it's a subtle, but you'll notice the difference as it gets staler, and it won't go rancid off, but you'll notice the difference. When you open the bottle, smell it, and then wait a couple of weeks, smell it again, you'll notice the difference, how it deteriorates again. So vermouth, wine, spirit, botanicals, aged in barrels, and there's a few different styles we should probably talk about. Fun fact, in Australia at the moment, there's like 16, 17 vermouths that are being produced at the moment. There's a list on my site, by the way, links back to all of them. And
They're very distinctive and interesting and different, which is lovely. Again, welcome everybody that's tuning in. And if you missed a bit and can't stay, don't forget I'm recording this, and this will go to my YouTube channel later on this week. Talking about vermouth, dry vermouth and heated martinis. So, how to preserve your vermouth? Keep it in the fridge, vacuum seal it, extend its life as far as you can because it will deteriorate over time. Alrighty, styles of vermouth. There is a difference. So there's like 16, 17 Australian vermouths, for example. So I'll just pull one off the shelf. Now you'll probably only got one or maybe two at home, and that's from Cheers to You, Decatur. I'm working on something right now. Where were we? Yes, so Maiden I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And there's also things like Regal Rogue, Courses and Cures, what's on Skew, there's a bunch. The deal with Australian vermouth is they're embracing, just like the gin makers are, Australian botanicals. So I'm generalising just a little bit. The thing to take on board is they're punchy in flavour, they're big in flavour, they're distinctively and unique, which is what you expect and different. But you need to handle with a bit of care. By that I mean, when I talk later on today, the ratios with Australian vermouths in particular, I find less goes more, because the flavours are richer and stronger than, say, at a French vermouth or an Italian vermouth. So keep that in mind. Hold that thought. Then, of course, you've got your classic Italian vermouths. So we owe a lot to the iconic brands like Cinzano, Martini. They're a bit dissed, in the current age, because there's always, boutique vermouths floating around. Balthazar from Germany and so on and so forth. But they were there from 1860s, 1870s. They, for 100 years more, this is all you could get anywhere. And fun fact, I went to Oman, of all places, which is on the Persian Gulf. And I think pretty sure I had the first martini in the desert, because there was a hotel there, and they had all the makings of martinis. We were surrounded by desert and camels, the whole oasis cliche. But they had a bottle of that. And so I just took this guy through how to make a martini, and it was very agreeable. But again, Italian vermouths, more seriously, are more wine-driven and fruit-driven. Can I put it this way? So again, keep that in mind. So when you're making a martini, you're going to need to taste all your ingredients first, if you can, to decide which way you want to go. French vermouths, of course. These probably no introduction to you guys. Dolan, Chambray, family-owned company. I think it's 6 generations or more. 1821 was that, which I should read the label. I love this. I'm using this at the moment. I go through phases, probably like you guys do. It's lighter and more delicate than, say, the other go-to in my house, Nolly Pratt. So these are readily available. They're good value for money. Nolly Pratt, again, is a bit more spicier and richer, comes towards the south of France, again, barrel aged, open air, very venerable company, and it's got a great reputation for a reason. So, and the outlier today I'm going to present to you kids is Lillet. So Lillet, so when you think about vermouth, traditionally speaking, they didn't put it in martinis. Martinis, as we know, walked up, in the late 18th, early 19th, 19th to the 20th century. But vermouth was drunk way before then. So when you drink vermouth, and it's still in case in Europe, is an aperitif for most part. So neat, on ice, before dinner, with food. So these drinks, these lovely spirits, are designed for that purpose in mind. So it's a bit of it is literally a new world thing. It's American creation to take a gin or a vodka and this, which is not designed for cocktails at all, and put it together. It's one of the geniuses of the new world, shall we say. So the lay, there's a couple of different versions, but this one is the orange version based on several oranges. Similar idea to vermouth, and I'll come back to how you can use that in a little bit while. So there's different styles of vermouth, and you need to know them before you start mixing around with them. Getting first in. Here's to you guys. Lovely to have you along. So if you've just missed a bit or just tuned in or you can't stay for the whole time, here's to you. Talk about how to work with vermouth in a martini context, and this will be saved and put on my YouTube channel on Wednesday night. Anyway, so there's a spectrum. You've all heard of dry martini, but there's also extra dry martini. But there's also way back in the day a so-called thing called a 50-50 or a perfect martini. So we're talking 1920s, 30s, thereabouts. What is that? I'll show you how to make one. It's literally half vermouth and half gin We'll talk gin for now, but assume it could be vodka if you want. And if you don't like dry martinis, this could be a really place to start. And you could start there and basically dial down the vermouth to your spirit ratio. So for the uninitiated, the drier the martini, the less vermouth you have. So it dropped out of favour. So after post-war, things got drier and drier and drier. A couple of different things happened. Obviously, World War II happened, and all these products were produced in Europe, and they had difficulties, obviously, coming to America or England, and also shipping, and they had more important things to do. But there were shipments of Nolly Pratt, way back when, 1880s, I think it was New Orleans and places like that. So they were on the go. So all these old European brands are in the New World. Can't stick to Australia so much. That was more recent. For a long, long, long time. But that was interrupted. So I've got a pocket theory that maybe that contributed to how after post-World War II there was a progression towards a dry martini, simply because they couldn't get the stuff. And no one locally was making vermouth, or at least not in a commercial sense at all. So park that idea for a side. So how do you make a perfect martini? Pretty simple, really. So you do a measure jug. Now, if you don't have a little one of these at home, try and get yourself a bar spoon, or a spoon in general. So one of these actually holds about 5 mils of fluid. So if you've got a measure, that's 15 mils, the little one, and this is the bigger one, which is 30 mils. And it's literally half and half. And if you don't like a dry martini, you're too puckery or whatever, then why not try one of these from the get-go and see how you feel. So let's use Nolly Pratt. And I've got my mixer out of shot here I'm being lazy and sitting down today. Here we go. So it is no more complicated than 30 mils of Nolly Pratt. We'll just make a small one today. Or any dry vermouth you've got. Understand that you get what you can get. So I'll come back to the rule of thumb in a sec. And then you get your gin, and I'm going to use just a local gin tonight, Underground Spirits, make a very nice delicate gin. But you'll see my point in a second. Okay. And then you stir it on ice, get it nice and cold. And we'll stir it down. Don't you love that sound? Now, if you've got some questions on the way, please chime in. Absolutely. So we're talking about using vermouth in martinis, different styles, and how you apply those and things like that. So at the very, very start of this session, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody here on Instagram who are tuning in, because I just ticked over 6,500 followers, which is pretty extraordinary, frankly. So I really, really appreciate your likes and your support, your ideas. And as I said in my post last night, when you're drinking martini, you're not alone, because you've got people like yourselves who just love a great drink, and it means a lot to me for you guys tuning in. Okay, so getting nice and cold now, but what you might notice here is the colour. If you're used to a clear, dry martini, which is that, or the remains of, let's do a pour. Now, for perfect martini, I tend to prefer an olive, because what you're going to get is a more richer, savoury kind of flavour. So, something prepared earlier. You could add orange bitters, of course. That's up to you. Trust me. So this, my friends, is so to rich to the colour. Is that going to pick up on that? So it's not a clear one. You've got this beautiful amberness that comes from the vermouth, not surprisingly. And what you're going to taste, I might just put a couple of drops in of orange bitters. Here's to you. So, vermouthy, winey, spicy, but still a crispy, clean, dry-ish martini. And what you can start there then is dial yourself back and just reduce the measurements of perfect martini. That's how they used to drink back in the day. Things change, styles change. As I said, different supply chains changed too, which I think probably affected what was going on. So you get to know, let's wind it back. Get to know your ingredients from the get-go. So are you working with, say, a really flavoursome gin? So this is a gin from Tasmania, for example. Very aniseedy, lots of juniper, very nice punchy kind of flavour. So you got that. You might have a navy strength gin. So I've beautiful Stockholm's Brannery from Sweden,
this is really rich and subtle and closely woven and aromatic, but it's 50% alcohol ABV. Or you might have what it's working with now, a classic London dry style, like a Plymouth or a Tanqueray or Underground, in the case may be, 42%, very classic London dry botanicals. So very, very subtle, it's a palette you can work with based on it. Or you might want a vodka. So you're a vodka drinker, obviously you've got your pristine ones like your Belvederes, or you might have a more organic one. This is a Seacliff, which is down the south coast of New South Wales, which is all organic and sustainably produced. Very malty, grainy, because they want to speak to their terroir, where they get their grain from and the production values. So that's got a lot going on as well. So my rule of thumb is in Martini, and I guess it's all a matter of taste, I get that. You're welcome. That you don't want to compete. The vermouth shouldn't compete or dominate over the spirit. It's the bridesmaid, not the bride, dare I say it. So you need to have a sense of what you're marrying it to, and then think about what the flavour profile of the vermouth you're working with, and then marry that up to where you want to go. Now, of course, you just may like dry martinis, and that's all fine. But you need to consider what's the flavour profile, or how rich is the flavour, or how powerful the flavour of the spirit you're working with is, how that might work with your vermouth, and then dial it back. So let's talk about application in for a minute. Now, I think you've all seen those movies or stuff where they'll do this. So here's my mixing glass, right? And I just saw it on a Instagram video just today, in fact. So they do what we call a vermouth rinse, right? So they pour a bit of vermouth, like so. And then the bartender or the person at home will just, stir it around. And then they'll pour it away. Pour it away into a glass or just down the sink. You could do that. And the theory is that the vermouth has now coated that ice. Well, here's my thought. We're going to do this. I'll come back to that. Why not just use less vermouth and stir it properly in the first place? Respect the maker. Respect the people who make this stuff. Use less vermouth in the first place. And then you're not wasting it. Keep it in the cocktail. So there's that. Or if you really want to try that way, you just want to coat the ice. What I do then is save it, because you can't put it back in the bottle. And this goes into my lovely olive brine mix, which is the subject for a recent episode. So if you missed that, check my YouTube channel and talk about this. So I save the vermouth and it goes in there and it marinates my olives for future cocktails. Don't waste it. Don't throw it away. It's disrespectful. Okay, that's one way you can apply it. You can obviously have a measure. So when they talk about ratios of vermouth, they might say 1:5 or 1:6 or 1:7 or 1:10. There's a General Montgomery, who was a British general in World War II, won the Battle of El Alamein. His Montgomery, I think, was 1:12 or 1:15 or something like that. That was apparently the ratio of men or artillery or tanks to the enemy before he'd start a battle. So what does that mean? That means, basically in parts, that means 1 part vermouth to, in this case, 15 parts gin. Or 1 part vermouth to 5 parts gin. So you've got to do the math in your head, which is a bit annoying. But what I do in a tune of dry martini might be, say you've got a classic like 60 ml drink. So one fluid, 1 ounce, 30 mils. It's a standard drink. Typical martini might get 2 at home, or 3 or 4 in my case. What you do is say, so I had a wet martini. So we put perfect martini 50-50. We've done that. Then you have a wet martini, which is like a bit more. So less vermouth and more of the spirit. So that might be 15 mils of vermouth to say 1.5 nips of or measures of your spirit. Then you might have a dry martini, and then I'm talking about 5 mils of vermouth. So that's a third of these little guys. Fun fact, if you've got a bar spoon or a teaspoon, that's about 5 mils right there. So if you don't know one of these, that's how you do it. So 5 mils of that to essentially 2 nips of spirit. And that's going to get you a very dry martini. Then you might have an ultra dry martini or super dry martini or whatever you want to call it. Then you're getting a bit opposite. You can have, fill that with vermouth and just spread over the top. Or you can have little bitters bottles, like so, and just add a few drops, into your cocktail. It's up to you. the things to think about, though, simply is that what's the intensity of flavour of the spirit you're working with? What's the flavour profile of your vermouth? And you don't want the vermouth to take over the spirit. So I mentioned before, some vermouths are really, really powerful and generous in flavours. So if the recipe says something like, I don't know, 15 mils of dry vermouth, if it's a very powerful vermouth, just dial it back to, by a third and see how it goes. You may have to do a bit of trial and error. But what happens if you're in a bar though? And again, if you've got some questions, jump in. I'm happy to help. Here's to you guys. And here's to getting better and meeting in the real world sometimes very soon. And here's to all the hospitality workers who are doing it tough and tougher for me right now. So cheers. So we're talking about vermouth and working with vermouth in the context of a cocktail. There's a PhD yet to be written about the alchemy between where you want to land in a martini. So again, we've talked in other episodes about the crispness and the dryness and the different spirit ratios and things like that. But when the context of vermouth is that if you've got a really rich flavoured kind of vermouth, then use less of it and see how you go. So in a bar, and you're looking at what their selection, you're going to ask them a couple of things. So they're going to ask you, the beautiful thing that Martini is, it's the only cocktail that is made in collaboration with the maker. So if you walk into a bar, they're going to ask you, well, how dry do you want it? What gin do you want? What vodka do you want? What garnish? And so forth. And on that point, that's something I want you to think about too. Do you want to accentuate like a perfect Martini we did earlier that, lends itself to an olive because it's a very savoury, richer kind of cocktail? Or do you want a really kind of bright kind of zesty drink? A question coming in about with the bitter bottles. So these little babies here, there's a few places online. I've got no affiliation to them. I don't know kickbacks or anything. But depending where you are, look at Cocktail Kingdom and look at Bar Geek and there's Bar Times in Japan who have beautiful stuff in Tokyo. So look up bitters bottles, and there's quite a few online shops who do that. And I usually get 2 just in case one drops. So yeah, thanks for the question. And they're perfect. So when these, I have a couple of these for my bitters, not surprising, and vermouth and things like that. And of course you can go crazy and just get an atomizer on eBay if you're going to go. So I use this cocktail I created for a client. You're most welcome. DK, for absinthe. So I made a special martini for the occasion for this very glamorous function, and this is full of absinthe, and over the top. Adelaide whiskey, hello. I'm most welcome. That's why I'm here. That's why I exist. That's quite obsessed about the martini. Infinite permutation, because this is the thing, right? This is why I'm quite obsessed about the martini. Think of a cocktail or any drink really that has like 2 basic ingredients, vermouth and a spirit, court gin, maybe some bitters, then you've got your garnish, and yet how much can go wrong? Everything usually goes wrong. How often have you had a really bad martini or an average martini as opposed to a really great martini? And that's why it's a bit of a Zen quest really. And I'll be honest, I might make out of, I won't say the number, but each week I might make 3 or 4 really, I sit down and go, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I got it all together. Got the music right, my mood's right, and the temperature's right, it all comes together. But vermouth never gets the recognition it deserves because that can really make or break a cocktail. It really, really does. It's also a matter of taste. I get that. So it could be very limited. So we're talking about your bar situation, and the bar person's going to ask you, well, how do you like your martini? And you've got a personal style. I get that. So sometimes you want a dry martini before dinner. You may want a dirty martini. You may want, just something like the perfect martini we were talking about earlier, demonstrated before, this one here. It's got a 50-50 vermouth to spirit. That's great for canapes and, other food, and because it's more a savoury kind of drink. It's not worried about getting cold or warmer quicker. That's what the case may be. A dry martini is a orchid of the martini world because, this has got a life expectancy of about 20 minutes because you don't want to drink a warm dry martini. You don't, trust me. Where were we? So you're not asking what vermouth do they have, what's available. So they've got Cinzano or Martini, then you think, well, okay, they're going to be a lot more wine driven. So maybe you might, if you like a dry martini, to say, well, I like it just a little, very, very, very dry. And I've even had bars going, once they made the cocktail, given it to me, I've tried it. They don't know me, I'm not trying to big nose myself. And they go, well, how do you like it? I go, well, it's perfect, it's great. But they also checked, which is really, really nice. So it's a very subjective thing. If you like your martinis, you like your spirit to really dominate, just dial back the vermouth and be clear about that. Okay, like I like a really, really dry martini, super dry, and see how far you get. I mean, leave it to them, they're the professionals, but they're going to ask you a few questions of where you want to go. So again, your starting point is what spirit you're going to work with, what vermouth you're going to work with, are they working with, what's in the bar, what have you got at home, and then ensure, because what the vermouth does at the end of the day is lend itself, it provides, to my mind, the backbone or the spice or the alchemy that creates a martini. You can't have a martini without dry vermouth. You know, it's the unsung hero of the cocktail world, really, in many, many ways. And so it has to be present, and there is an alchemy at play, and there's almost a mystical rite that comes into play about it. So, yes, that's your starting point. You can start with, if you're at home, play around your ratios. Try a perfect martini or a wet martini, or work your way to a dry martini, and you'll find it's such a different drink with what you're working with, even with the same spirit and same gin. It's a spectrum you can work a long way along. Voila. Question time, friends. And again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And if you missed a bit, and don't worry, this is all recorded and it'll go on my YouTube channel on Wednesday night too. If possible, the ones we've done previously. So I'm spending 30 minutes each Sunday night talking about, different aspects of the martini culture. And if you've got an idea for what we want to talk about for future episodes, I'd love to hear them. Cheers to you guys. So, otherwise I'll just make another drink and I'll just keep drinking. You're welcome Adelaide whiskey, and I should mention, just by the way, since you guys are tuning in, so on my website, shameless plug, I've updated all the whiskey makers over the weekend. I've updated all the gin makers, the vodka makers, the vermouth makers, like I said earlier. So I keep those directories up to, and the distilleries who make hand sanitizer around Australia in response to this awful moment we're in at the moment. So there's something like almost 295 gin makers listed at the moment. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, over 100 whiskey makers and rye makers. So there's quite a few in play, and it just keeps growing all the time. So I just sort of monitor that, and every couple of weeks I update that. So now I have links to reviews or articles, interviews that I've done, or they're linked back, all of them linked back to everyone's respective websites and things like that. So good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I've just been rambling on about dry vermouth in the context of martinis. So if you missed a bit, not fret. It's been saved and it will go on my YouTube channel on Wednesday night. Along with, we did gifted martinis, we've done dirty martinis. What else have we done? Shaken, not stirring, a whole bunch of different things. So if you've got an idea for things you want to hear about, do let me know. So this, friends, if you've just been tuning in, is a so-called perfect martini. Perfect in the sense that back in the 1920s, 1930s, thereabouts, it was the fashion to have martinis. And I guess you've got to think the quality of... gin dates is a great question. So about what time to consume vermouth opening a bottle. So yes, so that was something I just sort of touched on the beginning of the episode, and it's a very key thing because people forget that vermouth is a living thing. It's not a gin, it's not a vodka, it's not a whiskey. It will deteriorate once you start opening that bottle. You can buy yourself some time. You can buy yourself some time by keeping the fridge. So one of the things I do is decant some into a little thing, which I use for daily mixing, a couple hundred mils, that stays in my fridge. You can live there. Then I would use a vacuum pump, one of those things you use for wine. You might have seen those in the shops. To vacuum seal the bottle. So that'll buy me a lot of time. Left to its own devices, it'll probably deteriorate over about a month. And it's a subtle difference, but if you open the bottle and smell it, then try it like 2 weeks later, or a week later, or 3 weeks later, you'll notice a difference, and it will degrade, and it will affect the taste, dead set. I've made cocktails and went, ugh, what the hell's that? And I've realised that it's all vermouth. So if you can't vacuum seal it, at least keep it in the fridge. That'll double it. So you might get 2 months, 3 months. As long as it's nice and screwy and kept in the fridge, you might get 2 months, maybe 3 months, depending on it. That'll extend it big time. But left to its own devices, once you open it. So I'm very skeptical of bars who unless they're very high volume and they're turning out the vermouth very, very fast, is sitting on the back shelf behind, that's going to be a problem probably. And because who knows, that vermouth is going to be there for like months. Yeah, because
some places are not martini bars. So it's a jungle out there, as we talk about. So that hope that answers your question. So yes, so at home, chill it, keep it in the fridge, that'll double it, or extend its life, or maybe triple it. Maybe decant some, vacuum seal the rest, that'll like indefinitely, maybe again, another 4 months or so. Keep it out of direct sunlight. But if you go to a bar and they're not a high volume kind of martini bar, so to speak, you can probably be skeptical about how well that vermouth has been sitting there, because, voila. Good evening, none such. Nice to have you along. Lovely work, gents. We're talking about gins and martinis and dry vermouths. So I'm happy to take questions again. Please, I'll stick around for another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll leave you guys to get on to your own drinks. Oh, I hope you got one of your own. But I was saying before, I really appreciate your support. Everybody, just over 6,500 followers on Instagram, which is pretty extraordinary in the scheme of things. And you're all real. I didn't buy any one of you. There's no fake counts amongst you. Like some influencers I could probably mention right now, but I won't. So yes, wrapping all this up. Think about respect the vermouth. Don't tip it out. Don't rinse the glass. Almost forgot. So earlier on the episode, I introduced Lillet, which is a beautiful French vermouth. Remember, vermouth is usually drunk as an aperitif before dinner, neat or a night. So when I went to France, for example, a few years ago, where sorry, I lost my train of thought there because asked for a martini, right? So what I got was a glass on ice with vermouth in it. Martini, dry martini has in the brand vermouth, and not quite what I asked. So I learned to say in France, martini cocktail, s'il vous plaît, and therefore I did. That's when I started getting these things. So House of Fletcher asked a very next question. Checking out my olive brine episode, do you have a particular olive preference? Sicilian olives, bottom line. So I'll just reach over here. So this is the offending mother load. I know in sourdough terms I talk about the good stuff. What's it called, the mother? Someone correct me anyway. So the mother something of the yeast. I'm not a baker, clearly. So I've got 3 types of olives in here. Some pitted, some unpitted. All Sicilian olives. All different flavours. Some are just here for flavour in the brine, and but essentially you could just go to a supermarket and get some. And if you check out the episode, we'll go into more detail how you create your own brine to take those to the next level. So yes, whole Sicilian would be the go-to. I'll show you a pro tip number 2. So this is something I prepared earlier. House of Fletcher. So you'll notice these are the unpitted ones, but I'll show you what happens. So my want is to take the garnish out, because if you're sipping it, most welcome, House of Fletcher. So what's going to happen with these unpitted ones? They fill up with booze, and they can end up somewhere you don't want it. So they look nice, and that's why, generally speaking, in your martinis, you want a stuffed olive, so if you're in America, or a whole olive, so you don't run that problem about running down your dress or your jacket or somewhere you don't want it. So, pro tip number 2. Voila. So friends, I hope you've enjoyed yourself tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you missed it, Wednesday night on my YouTube channel, I'll make a mention of it here on Instagram. And again, it's been lovely to have you along. Hope you learned something today and enjoyed yourself, and stay well. And so next time, see you next week.